We're going to be going back to Texas by taking Interstate 20. Come on, let's go. Alright everyone, today we're going to be doing Interstate 20 westbound. Going this direction on Interstate 20 is not a whole lot better than going eastbound. You still get to see the same scenery and stuff and visit the same places. But oh boy, does the states like to sign our control city very close to our secondary, as you can see here with these three examples. I think the only state that does not do this is Georgia, though I couldn't really see because I was traveling on Interstate 20 at night. So as a bonus, we're going to be doing Shreveport's Interstate 220. So let us get started with 20 westbound. But first, you're watching TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of Interstate 20 once again, as it runs from a junction with Interstate 10 out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, all the way up to Florence, South Carolina at a junction with Interstate 95. In today's video, we're going to be starting in Florence and heading west to Interstate 10. So without me talking about westbound Interstate 20, so we begin here on a couple miles north of the Interstate 95 and 20 junction, where we are still within the Florence area, and we do get this really bad mileage sign with both US 52 and Interstate 20 mentioned. Yes, I know these two are major important junctions here in the city of Florence, but you do not need them both on a mileage sign. One of them is just fine with Savannah on the bottom line. What are you doing here, SC Dot? And then here's that said junction with Interstate 95 and Interstate 20, as SC Dot has made an error shield here, as this is supposed to be business Interstate 20, because Interstate 20 ends at this junction. It does not continue east. And if you do take business Interstate 20 east, it will take you over to the Magnolia Mall, which was requested by Ryan Golden, so thank you for that request. But let us take exit 160B, because that is Interstate 20 proper. And once we get onto that exit, we do have our first mileage sign with Columbia on the bottom line from a nice 76 miles away. And then here, our first major exit on Interstate 20 westbound is US Highway 401, the Great US 401, as a team sign for Hartsville and Sumter. Sumter is definitely a good choice for the Great 401. Now we're meeting with US Highway 15 a few miles up the road, with Sumter as its control city along with Bishopville. Here we are meeting US Highway 521 in Camden, and oh boy, I have a funny story about that, but you can learn all about it in my Texas trip video, which I made a couple months ago, and it'll be in the top right corner here. And at random junctions, Interstate 20 is being signed for Columbia, so that is definitely awesome. And then here in Columbia, we meet Clemson Road. Interesting how there's a Clemson Road in Columbia, but there isn't a Columbia Street in Clemson. Come on, Clemson, you need to get with your rival here. And then a couple miles up the road, we do meet with Interstate 77, which is getting great control cities, while we're still getting signed west for Columbia. Technically, since we're already in the Columbia area, I'd prefer to see Augusta on here too, but Columbia is still an alright choice. And then after that, we do get another mileage sign with Augusta now as our primary from 70 miles away, so that is awesome. Here we are crossing over the Broad River here in Columbia. That is a very cool picture. Oh wait, I took it. Now we're meeting with Interstate 26, which 26 East is being signed for Charleston, which is awesome. And since this interchange is under construction, we do not have a control city for 26 West yet. And after passing by Interstate 26, we do get another mileage sign with US 1 as our secondary now, with Augusta still as our primary. Here is that said exit with US Highway 1, the Great US 1, which I will be doing an entire series on next month. And our next mileage time, we still get Augusta as our primary from 52 miles away. And then here in Batesburg, Leesville, we meet with US Highway 178. And then hey, we meet US 1 once again, so that is pretty cool. I wonder what happened to this sign. Poor sign, why'd you fall down? And then last time I was on Interstate 20, I managed to get this cool picture of the sunset here. That is just totally amazing. Now this will be a recurring theme on Interstate 20. We are still getting signed for Augusta when we're 13 miles away from it. I wanted to start seeing Atlanta here. We do not need to be signing Augusta from only 13 miles away. Why, I see that? Why are you repeating your mistakes that you did on Interstate 85 with this mileage sign? Sign Atlanta! And here you are meeting with Interstate 520 getting signed for Augusta while we're getting signed for Atlanta, which definitely is the correct choice. And after passing by that exit, we finally do get Atlanta as our primary from 148 miles away. Now we're crossing over the Savannah River into the state of Georgia. Sadly, Georgia does not have a welcome sign. And then on the other side of the river, we are meeting with Interstate 520 once again, as we're now getting signed for Atlanta still. And we can see that Atlanta is our primary from 138 miles away. And then on our way to Atlanta, we meet with US Highway 78. Hello, US 78. And then we also meet with US 129 and US 441 in Madison, Georgia. And here you are meeting with US Highway 278, as 278 and Interstate 20 are going to be concurrent as we head towards Atlanta. Here you are meeting Interstate 285 being signed for Greenville, Chattanooga, and Macon, respectively, which are awesome choices. In the heart of Atlanta, we meet with US Highway 23, which is just getting a Kentucky treatment, which I think makes sense because we are within the city. Now we're meeting with the Interstate 75 and 85 here, as we're now getting signed west for Birmingham, which definitely is the correct choice. And then on our way towards Birmingham, we have some very cool Atlanta skyline pictures that I took. And here's some more Atlanta pictures. And then on our way out of the city, we pass by Georgia Highway 280 here. And then here is the other meeting with Interstate 285 on the west side of the city here. Oddly how Interstate 20 has no control city. And then here we pass by Georgia Highway 61 and 101. And the last time I was on Interstate 20, I stayed at this exit. And this is the exit where I got the cool selfie with the Interstate 20 shields. And then our next mileage time, we do get Birmingham on the bottom line from 113 miles away. And in the Carrollton area, we meet with US Highway 27, and strangely, it's just getting signed for Bremen here. After passing through Bremen, we get Birmingham as our primary still from 99 miles away. In fact, we get 999s, which I am very happy about. Our last mileage sign in Georgia, we still get Birmingham from 94 miles away, so Georgia is perfect on Interstate 20. And then we're now entering into the state of Alabama, which they just give us an Alabama state line entering the county name along with Central Time Zone now. And our first mileage sign in Alabama, we get Birmingham still as our primary, so Algot is starting off strong. And on our way to Oxford, Alabama, we meet with US Highway 431 here. And this is where US 431 splits off from Interstate 20, as it's going to be heading north towards Oxford and Anniston. And in the Oxford area, we actually passed by a baseball field with a cool mountain view, so that is awesome. And then a couple miles up the road, we still get Birmingham as our primary from 58 miles away. Now we're meeting with US Highway 78 in Pell City, and we have no shortage of meeting US 78 here. And still in the Pell City area, we actually meet with US Highway 231. I only managed to get the shields here, not the actual exit. And then on the outskirts of Birmingham, we still get Birmingham as our primary from 20 miles away, so that's not bad. And then here in the Birmingham city limits, we meet with Interstate 459 here, as 20 is still getting signed west for Birmingham, because if you want to go places beyond Birmingham, it would be better to take Interstate 459 here. And here are joining with Interstate 59 as it's getting signed north for Gadsden. No, that should be Chattanooga. While 20 and 59 are now going to be concurrent as we head through the heart of Birmingham and towards Tuscaloosa. Now I think Tuscaloosa is a good choice because it is a sizable city in western Alabama. It's also home to the University of Alabama. Plus, I think signing Meridian from here would be a bit too far. Here in the heart of Birmingham, we're now meeting with Interstate 65 along with US 31 and US Highway 280. And here we say goodbye to US Highway 78, as US 78 will become Interstate 22 just a couple miles north of here. And we're still getting signed southwest for Tuscaloosa. Now we're meeting with Interstate 459 on the west side of Birmingham, and we still are getting signed for Tuscaloosa, which definitely is a good choice. But our next mileage time, we actually get Meridian as our primary from 118 miles away. Interesting, LDOT. Interesting. Man, here we are meeting with US Highway 11, and oh boy, has this sign seen better days. Ooh. But once we get close to Tuscaloosa, it looks like that ALDOT is repeating what SCDOT is doing, and we still get it as our primary from 18 miles away. Now this is the point where we start signing Meridian. No, not having Tuscaloosa being less than 20 miles out. But luckily on our next mileage time, we do get Meridian as our primary once again, so way to pick up the slack, LDOT. And here in the Tuscaloosa area, we meet with Interstate 359 along with Alabama Highway 69, and we're now getting signed southwest for Meridian, which is an alright choice. And then on our way to Meridian, we actually meet with US Highway 11 once again, along with US Highway 43, getting signed for Knoxville, Alabama. And here we meet with Alabama Highway 14, getting signed for Utah and Aliceville. Here we get a mileage time with Meridian as our primary from 59 miles away. And we're now entering into the state of Mississippi. And at the Mississippi Welcome Center, I managed to get my own selfie with a Welcome to Mississippi sign. So that is awesome. Now it looks like MDOT is following in the steps of both ALDOT and SCDOT, and we now get Meridian as our primary still. Come on, I'd rather see maybe Jackson for 20 or New Orleans for 59. No need signing these primaries still. We're too close to them. And then on the outskirts of Meridian, we meet with US Highway 45, which are getting signed for Macon and Quitman. Strangely weird for two Georgia cities in Mississippi. Oh look, it's the return of Interstate 20 neglection. Come on, Miss MDOT. And here is where you say goodbye to US Highway 11 as it's being signed south for Philadelphia, Mississippi. So they're actually favoring Mississippi 19 here. No, I'd rather see something on US 11, please. And here we get a mileage sign with Laurel on the top line and Jackson as our primary, so that is awesome. And here's where Interstate 59 splits with Interstate 20, as we're now getting signed solely west for Jackson. And on our next mileage time, we still get Jackson as our primary from 75 miles away. On our way out of Meridian, we meet with Mississippi Highway 15, which is also getting signed for Philadelphia, Mississippi. Now we meet with US Highway 80, and it's getting the bad control city of Florence, and and Lake is alright. Now we're meeting with Mississippi Highway 35, getting signed for Raleigh, Mississippi, and Forest. And here we get another mileage sign with Jackson still as our primary from 31 miles away. And it looks like MDOT is doing it once again because we're getting Jackson from only 13 miles away. Come on, MDOT, why don't you start signing Shreveport or Monroe? Not Jackson from 13 miles away. Again, we're really close to the city. Sign something beyond Jackson. And here in Brandon, we meet with US Highway 80 once again. And now in the heart of Jackson, we're going to be concurrent with US Highway 49 North here, but this is the exit for 49 South. And now we're arming with Interstate 55 as it's being signed north for Grenada and Memphis. Personally, that Grenada needs to go. Memphis is just fine. Well, I think this is probably the worst concurrency pull-through in the entire country. Macomb and Vicksburg are really small places. I prefer to see New Orleans for 55 and Shreveport for Interstate 20 here. Why are you citing two small places, MDOT? Why are you getting on my nerves? Just do something correct for once. And here's where we split off from Interstate 55, and we do get New Orleans as its primary, while we still get Vicksburg. No, I want to see Shreveport here, not Vicksburg. And here's where US 49 splits off from Interstate 20 as it's still getting signed for Vicksburg, while 220 and 49 are getting signed for North Jackson and Yazoo City. See, Vicksburg is only 30 miles away from here. Why can't you sign, I don't know, like Monroe or Shreveport? But luckily, once we get closer to Vicksburg, we do get Monroe now as our primary. Personally, I like to see Shreveport because it's bigger than Monroe. Here in Vicksburg, we meet with US Highway 61, and 61 South is now going to be concurrent with us. Hey, look at that! MDOT can sign Interstate 20, so why can't you do it the 11 and Mississippi 19 concurrency? Here's where US 61 leaves Interstate 20 as we're snugging west for Monroe. I prefer to see Shreveport, please. And here are crossing over the Mississippi River and into the state of Louisiana. So let us see what Louisiana has to offer on Interstate 20. And our very first exit is US Highway 80 splitting off from Interstate 20 as it's being signed west for Delta. No, I prefer to see Delta and Tallulah here because Tallulah is bigger than Delta and Delta's basically nothing. You can sign Tallulah on both US 80 and 65 Louisiana. And here we are meeting with US Highway 65 being signed for Vidalia and Tallulah. And on US 65 we can see that Interstate 20 is being signed for Monroe and Vicksburg. Again, I prefer to see Jackson and Shreveport here. But we still get Monroe as our primary from 37 miles away. Now this is probably the point where you should start signing Shreveport. We're arming with Louisiana Highway 609, which is going to Dunn, Louisiana, and like we saw in the US 80 eastbound video, it's practically nothing. Now arming with US Highway 425 being signed for Archibald and Rayville. And here in Rayville, we actually pass by this very giant cross here, so that is pretty interesting. Now arming with Louisiana Highway 133 at exit 132. Too bad it's not at exit 133, because then we'd have a perfect 133. Here in Monroe, we meet with US Highway 165, which is being signed for Bastrop and Columbia. And at random interchanges here in Monroe, we are now getting finally signed west for Shreveport, which definitely is the correct choice. But like I said, it should have been signed basically from Jackson. I mean, Monroe's still a good secondary, but I prefer to see Shreveport. And our next mileage line, we do get Shreveport as our primary now from 87 miles away. Here in Ruston, we meet with US Highway 167, and like always, there is no mention of US Highway 63 for some reason. And then we still get Shreveport as our primary from 47 miles away on the next mileage sign. And then here we are meeting with US Highway 371 in Minden, and it's now going to be concurrent with us as we head towards Shreveport. And here is where US 371 splits off from us, getting signed for Cotton Valley and Spring Hill. And it looks like Louisiana is also following in the steps of MDOT, South Carolina, and ALDOT here. Again, why do you keep signing these places that are only 10, 15 miles away? You can start signing Dallas now. Places beyond Shreveport exist. Places beyond our current control city exist. Why do you do these states? Why? And here in the Shreveport area, we meet with Interstate 220, and we are going to be taking Interstate 220 here, as it's being signed west for Texarkana, which definitely is the correct choice, while 20 proper is being signed for Dallas now. And our first exit on Interstate 220 is US Highway 79 and US 80 here, as they're getting signed for East Texas Street. And here you get a mileage sign with like what they do in South Carolina on Interstate 95 with our next two highways as our control cities, interestingly. You're arming with US Highway 71 here. And then a couple miles up the road, we're now meeting with Interstate 49 as it's inside north for Texarkana. And our control city is now Dallas. Well, we also get a separate pull through for 2 Interstate 49 south for Alexandria. And here's a couple of reassurance shields with Interstate 220 and 2 south Interstate 49. And then here's the ending to Interstate 220 as we're now meeting with Interstate 20 once again being signed for Dallas and Monroe. I like that Dallas for 20 westbound, but that Monroe should definitely be Jackson, or Jackson and Monroe. And our last major exit in the state of Louisiana is US Highway 79 and US Highway 80 here. And our last mileage sign, we now get Dallas as our primary from 173 miles away. That is pretty far. And we're now entering into the state of Texas. It's Texas time! Yeehaw! And our first major exit in Texas is exit 635 for Spur Highway 156 and Farm to Market 9, getting signed for Wascom here in the city of Wascom. And in our first mileage sign in Texas, we get Dallas as our primary from 159 miles away still. And yes, those are 159 long miles. And on our way to Dallas, we meet with US Highway 59 as it's being signed for Marshall and Carthage. And no, it should not be signed for Florence, Kansas. That's too far from here. Here we are, get another mileage sign with Dallas still as our primary from 155 miles away. Now we're meeting with US Highway 259 in the Longview area, and 259 South is now going to be concurrent with us. And here's where US 259 splits off, as we're also meeting with Texas Highway 31. And like US 231, I was only managed to get the pictures of the US 271 shields here, and not the actual exit. And here we are meeting with Texas Highway 49 toll road here, which has no control cities. Here we pass by exit 540 once again. And here's an interesting thing. We're still a good 80 miles out from Dallas, but we now are getting Fort Worth as our primary from 111 miles away. So that is pretty interesting by TxDOT. And here is Spur Highway 557, which is the road that is the fastest way to Dallas from here. So well done TxDOT recognizing that, as we're now getting signed west for Fort Worth. And here we are meeting with Interstate 635 on the outskirts of the DFW Metro here, and we're now getting signed 20 west for Fort Worth. Here we meet with Interstate 45 as it's being signed for Houston and Dallas respectively. Now we're meeting with Interstate 35E being signed for Dallas and Waco. And here we are meeting with US Highway 67, which is being signed north for Dallas as well, and south for Coburn. And skipping ahead to the Fort Worth side of the DFW Metro, meet with US Highway 287 here, as 20 is now being signed west for Abilene, which I think is a good choice because it is one of the major cities that Interstate 20 will be passing through for the rest of its journey. But before we exit out of the DFW Metro, we meet with Interstate 35W, which is being signed south for Waco and Denton. I do not like those control cities. Also, we are meeting it at exit 437, which once again is Quartermont approved. And now we're meeting with Interstate 820, and just like all 3-digit interstates in Texas, it has no control cities. And here is the ending to Interstate 30, as historic US 80 is now going to be merging into us here. And here we meet with US Highway 180, which is being signed for Weatherford and Mineral Wells, as we're still getting signed west for Abilene still. And our next mileage time, we still get Abilene as our primary from 117 miles away. Here arming with US Highway 281 in the middle of nowhere, as we're now getting signed for Abilene and El Paso. That is pretty awesome by TxDOT. This is cool. And then once we get to Abilene, we are now getting signed solely west for El Paso, which is awesome. I mean, you could also throw in Midland and Odessa there, because that is the last major metro we're going to be passing through before meeting Interstate 10. And then here you're arming with US 83 and US Highway 277, and for some reason, one shield is missing from both exits. But once we exit out of the Abilene area, El Paso is nowhere to be seen, and we're just going to be town hopping and town hopping and town hopping. But when we pass through these small towns, we are still getting signed 20 west for El Paso, which is strangely weird. And here we're arming with US Highway 84, which is getting signed for Lubbock, which definitely is an awesome choice. And then see, we're just town hopping, as we're getting Colorado City as our next primary. So I see TxDOT has now followed in the steps of the other states except for GDOT. Come on, TxDOT, you're doing so well. And now we get Big Spring now as our primary. So where is El Paso? Why are you not signing El Paso, TxDOT? You're arming with US Highway 87 out here in West Texas. And it looks like that someone forgot to turn off the transparency here to this Interstate 20 business loop shield, because it's just printed on a white background. And here you're arming with US Highway 385 in the heart of the Midland-Odessa Metro. And after going through the Midland-Odessa Metro, we're now getting signed for El Paso from 268 miles away. Personally, it should have been signed from Abilene, because it would have been cool to see it from, like, I don't know, like 400 or 500 miles away. And this here is in Monahans, where we meet with US Highway 285 here, getting signed for Carlsbad and Fort Stockton. And then after that, we still get El Paso as our primary still from 205 miles away. And then after going through that last secondary, we now get two places on Interstate 10, because there's literally nothing left on Interstate 20 to sign. So this is a great move by TxDOT here. And this is our last exit on Interstate 20, exit 3 for Stocks Road. And as you can see, there is nothing out here. This is probably just used to be turning around onto Interstate 20 East. And then 3 miles up the road, we finally meet with Interstate 10, where you have the option to head east towards San Antonio, or west towards El Paso, which we were being signed for. So with that, we end Interstate 20, and we move on to the way it should be. So these are all the places that I think should be signed on Interstate 20. And if you have any suggestions or corrections, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'd love to talk about it with you. So that ends the entirety of Interstate 20. Thank y'all so much for watching this cool series on Interstate 20. I hope you got to learn a little bit more about the highway through my experience and my pictures of the interstate. So with that, here are my next few highways. If you have any extra requests for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week as we head to US Highway 80. Bye!